Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webcast. My name is Mike Otranto, and I'm a strategic account specialist at Wickersoft. I'm also joined on today's webcast with Jim Patterson, who leads in a business development role. Today, we will focus on unified work management with Project Online with Office 365 Planner. After the webinar, you will receive an email with a copy of the recording and the slide deck so you can review. The line will not be open for questions, but you can type in your questions via the chat feature. So if you want to know more about Wickersoft and who we are today, we are a Microsoft joint venture that was founded in 2002. We provide consulting, business process outsourcing, managed services, and global support for staffing. We are a triple gold certified Microsoft partner. Less than 1% of partners ever have that designation. We are certified in project portfolio management, collaboration and content, and cloud productivity. From a project and portfolio management standpoint, we have a deep expertise in Project Online and Project Server. So we have a lot of experience helping organizations maximize their efficiency and technological advantage. We have a footprint all over North America and internationally. I will now hand off the webcast to Jim Patterson. Jim?
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate the introduction. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this webcast today. Let's get into the topic area, Unified Work Management with Project Online and Office 365 Planner. Our agenda today is we're going to talk about some of today's challenges that companies and organizations face that drive the need for more unified work management. We'll then talk about unified work management concepts and then how that's executed in the Microsoft technologies and tools that are available today with Microsoft Project, Office 365 Planner, and even connection to other tools beyond that. We'll then give a demonstration of some of these things in action, and then we'll wrap up with an overview of some additional use cases that you can maybe explore, the value and benefits of what we've seen, and then talk about next steps if you're interested in pursuing some of these things further. So with that, let's proceed. So let's talk about some of today's challenges in the marketplace. Most of the challenges today's marketplace is driving is really around the rise of technology. We all see it on a daily basis, but what was even considered brick and mortar type of businesses in the past and even recently are essentially becoming software companies at their core in order to compete. The department stores of the old have become the Amazons and the other online shopping of the world. The old delivery of things like video content has gone into streaming and Netflix and other things like that. Even transportation like taxi cabs has been overtaken by Uber and Lyft and those types of things. And even the soft drinks we buy at our fast food restaurants is software and computer driven when we look at these new screens and the way we select and access those things. So what does this mean from a project management perspective? It means that we have a lot more technology projects, and all of our companies, even though we're on the street and may be perceived by the customers being brick and mortar, the differentiators that make us competitive is really about how well we leverage technology and how well we innovate to have new ways to go to market and ways to reach our customer and take advantage of new opportunities and models of doing business. And what this also means is it affects really all different levels of roles within our organization. It affects our executives because they have to strategize in different ways on ways to compete, stay ahead of the curve in the marketplace, and also to reach our customers in effective ways. The PMOs are now dealing more and more with a hybrid of all different types of projects, including a lot more technology projects than ever before, including new product development. Then the software development teams, they're using tools to innovate and do things in different ways, but then still have to feed up the chain through the PMO and to the executives and to leadership to have them track the investments that they're making in these areas. And then ultimately, with all this technology that's being put out, we have to support it as an organization, meaning the knowledge transfer and all the things that we have to do to support this in our customer base needs to be modified as well. So what this really results in is a lot of disconnected systems and processes within organizations. Different systems are put in place typically to address different types of work. And in this case, we're looking at just 3 different silos that we commonly find. The traditional project management in the middle that really represents more waterfall types of things that you did traditionally in things like Microsoft Project. And then on the right, we're looking at application management where we have more software development going on. And people are more and more using software development environments that have agile tools built in, things like Visual Studio and JIRA and version 1 to do more agile types of approaches to things, and they're building separate systems and silos of information to address that. And then we have service management that has more ad hoc, unplanned type of work, unstructured work, where the Microsoft Dynamics and the ServiceNows of the world have systems in place to address those. And then on top of that, you layer on all the myriad of spreadsheets and things that are going on within organizations to address other point needs that are in the organization. And then you have resources and management folks who are having to monitor and look at all these different data sources or somehow manually mash them up to get views of that. Also, not to mention the different processes and what really are the priorities of the organization when they're segmented like that are very difficult to discern. So the idea is we're trying to address these things by bringing these things together in a more unified fashion. So the technology-driven challenge by not bringing these together is that oftentimes, we end up with some less than ideal customer service. We have unclear what our resource availability or our ability to deliver work is. Cross-functionally working with organizations becomes difficult when information is segmented like this, and those information silos really drive a lot of manual efforts to do reporting, to disseminate work, and to just stay on top of the things that we're in. So these are just a smattering of the challenges that organizations are facing as they go through this maze of all this information that's segmented into all these different sources. And then ultimately, this creates barriers. This wall is really meant to represent the barriers that we have internally, cross-functionally, meaning things that keep us from working better together as an organization, and the barrier of the wall between us and our customers. If we don't get a handle on this and we leave it segmented and inefficient, we can end up with things like low response time and no consistent processes. We can end up with confused and unhappy employees that can, drive high turnover. And there's a cost of doing business with that. And the idea is, how do we, deal with all these ineffective ways of working and make it better so our organizations become the best we can be at navigating through these? So with that, we really want to maybe try to take a more unified work management approach. And what do we mean by that? Ultimately, work management becomes not just a broad set of silos horizontally across all those different types of work, but it's also more hierarchical in the way it actually gets structured and the way it gets communicated and developed through an organization. We have the higher level strategies that should be driving most of these things, where we have higher level executives making strategic plans, devising enterprise architectures, innovation and ideation kind of driving our new product development and things that we want to do as an organization strategically to say this is where we want to put our investments in our development resources. And also putting over like higher level performance plans and budgets so that financially we can drive the results that we want to our owners, shareholders, whatever it might be. But once those things are devised, we then have to break this down and say, how do we deliver on those things? Now, the next level of detail tends to be program and portfolio management. This is where we align things with objectives. We define higher level initiatives that'll help us achieve those more strategic plans. And then we decide what services and applications and products we want to put in place, as well as optimize our business processes through things like Lean Six Sigma and other things like that to become more effective as the way we deliver within an organization. And then after we have those more broad categories or items that we want to drive towards to support those strategies, we ultimately have to do the work. And we have to have effective work execution and collaboration and really break these things down into specific IT or technology projects, maybe customer-facing billable projects, more application maintenance and enhancement types of things that we have to do in order to stay competitive. Just unplanned service requests, general software development, even down to level to-dos that people want to be action itemed on. And the idea here is, if this isn't aligned well, and we're not having a good process in place in order to make this happen effectively, we can end up working on things that don't add value, or we can be working and delivering on the wrong things, and maybe we're not supporting the overall strategic direction of the company. So if we look at this from an enterprise work management life cycle, if we look up in the upper left, ultimately there's executive guidance and direction onto the general, what's that the organization wants. So we could do some high-level planning, high-level enterprise modeling, define financial and operational targets. And then when we define these types of things, we ultimately have to size these things and figure out how we're going to do it and what the subject matter experts in our organization say it's going to take in order to make those things happen. And when we do these things, the portfolio level, high level information in the Microsoft realm is managed very, very well by Microsoft Project Online from a project portfolio management and strategic alignment perspective. But then when we start sizing these things, we may be doing these things in a variety of different tools and spreadsheets and other things to help size and model those things to say, if we do the things that the executive leadership wants us to do, can we do those things? Are they technically feasible? What's it going to take from a resource and cost perspective? And we're doing those maybe in a variety of different tools depending on the nature of the work. You may have teams working in Project, Office 365 Planner, Visual Studio, JIRA, whatever it might be. And then ultimately when they provide those sizing estimates and costs to support what it's going to take, you know, the leadership says, this is what we want. The subject matter experts and the teams are deciding or communicating to the organization how it's going to be done and what it's going to take. And then ultimately that feeds back to the organization for more approval and investment and funding of those things so that we're working on the right things that leadership wants us to work on. But ultimately in this whole diversity of tools scenario, providing the right tool for the job is something that Gartner really established back even in 2012, where you got to have the right tool for the job. You know, there was a point where folks thought that the big monolithic enterprise ERP type of solutions or other types of solutions were going to have everything an organization needed in order to make it work. And it turns out that really the world is really made up of a bunch of best of breed solutions depending on the nature of the type of work or the challenges that an organization faces. So getting the right tool for the job and making best of breed tools work together is really where Gartner sees the vision of this going. And at the portfolio level, where we're looking at things at a much higher level, it's really where, you know, we're interested in creating decision frameworks, selecting the right projects based upon those frameworks, and then planning and tracking those investments that we approve at a high level so we know that those investments are delivering and they're delivering within the cost parameters and the resource parameters that we've set out. But then it gets really diverse at the execution level. This is where all these different tools happen, and people are interested at this level in project and resource management at a more tactical basis, and then want to be able to communicate the progress at this level and expenditures back to business sponsors and management so they can view that at the higher portfolio level. And the idea is if there's not a strategy or a plan to pull this together, there's a lot of manual gymnastics that has to happen with the data in order to provide those views up to leadership, and sometimes can be very painful within organizations. So if we look at the model using Project Online and the tools in unified work management, the green bar at the top of this slide is really meant to depict the end-to-end capabilities of Project Online, from demand management, which can be, you know, early ideation and request management, through the portfolio management where leadership can actually assess and vet the demand and choose the projects that are more strategically aligned and add the value that the organization wants, through all the execution pieces that are desired, and then all the business intelligence and decision support that needs to come out of the information that's being generated. And Project Online does a really nice job of doing this. Now, with a variety of different things we're going to show you today, both things that Microsoft is offering natively versus the things that Wickersoft's Project Connect, which is an integrated platform in the Microsoft cloud that connects Project Online to a variety of other different tools in an automated fashion. If down the left-hand side of this, where you see where waterfall projects happen using waterfall methodologies, Microsoft Project and Project Web Access handles that out of the box very nicely. They're in the middle, more agile projects where people use more agile methodologies. They're using other tools predominantly, things like Visual Studio, JIRA, et cetera, in order to make those things happen. But the idea is that we still need that information fed up to the portfolio management solution so we get more holistic portfolio information fed up to leadership. And then down the right, the lighter weight planning, things that might be done in things like Office 365 Planner that people get with their Office 365 subscriptions, or SharePoint, or Wunderlist, or even other lighter weight third-party tools. This is where people maybe don't need the robustness of a Microsoft project, and they want to do lighter weight, simple projects in a simple tool that doesn't require knowing how to use Microsoft Project. All of this is still about tying execution back up to business strategy, but making sure that the teams and the people who are executing this have the right tools for the job, or the ones that are preferred for the type of work that they do. So let's talk about integration with Office 365 Planner for simplified task management. Now, just recently announced and released was Microsoft has come out with Microsoft Project links to Office 365 Planner. This is brand new. It's something that leverages Office 365 Planner as a companion or an extension of what's being done with your Microsoft project plans. And I want to emphasize that because there's a little delineation of capabilities here that I want to make sure that we're clear on. Essentially, when you're in Project Online and using Microsoft Project to plan out the schedules of individual projects within that portfolio, you put in your project plan and your tasks and your schedules in those like you ordinarily would. But now with the newly released linkage between Project and Office 365 Planner, you can actually select a task within Microsoft Project and create a link from that project task to a group in the Office 365 Planner. What that allows you then to do is, if this group or team then wants to take a task that they've been assigned in Project and then break it out into more detail, more action items and to-do levels of things that would support the actual delivery of that task or the completion of that task, it allows them to do that in Planner and actually break that out as more punch list type of items that you would do to support a task. Now, that's available natively now within Microsoft Project 2016 for Project Online, and we'll show you that as it works. So this is essentially using Microsoft Project as still your scheduling tool, but then breaking out that to-do or action item level detail below the task level on each individual task. So you could actually have this breakout for each task within Microsoft Project. Now, Wickersoft's Project Connect for Office 365 Planner gives you another use case that is supported to make things happen. And this is where Project Online is the project portfolio management solution. And just like in the last scenario, people may choose to use Microsoft Project for the waterfall projects or Project Web Access to build those plans out in totality. But in this case, let's say, for example, there's parts of the organization that are doing more simple projects. Maybe there's a simple marketing project, for example, where it just requires maybe a small number of tasks, and they just need to be tracked through completion. They don't need a complex work breakdown structure or hierarchy. This allows you to choose to use Office 365 Planner for the entire project plan, not just as a subset of punch list items for tasks in a Microsoft project plan. And ultimately, what you can do is execute the full project in Office 365 Planner and have an automated synchronization of those Microsoft Office 365 Planner tasks back to Project Online, not only to look at it from a detailed perspective, but then to roll up the appropriate metrics and KPIs and things to leadership when they're looking at portfolio level reporting. And we'll show you some of that here today. And then if we want to take this unified work management concept another step further, there's the whole concept of agile. And in this bimodal PPM world, the Gartner Group once again defined bimodal IT back in 2015, where mode 1 is really that traditional PPM or waterfall type of approach and governance based structure. Where it's a linear approach, where it's a steady as she goes, predictability, reliability, stability, phased type of approaches of projects that are managed really well in Microsoft Project natively and Project Online. And the analogy here is like marathon runners, projects with longer cycle times, maybe larger infrastructure projects, etc. And then they define mode 2 as more of the agile approach, more non-linear, involves iterative approaches, emphasizing agility of speed and responding to change and uncertainty rather than kind of long phased or stage gate type of methodologies. And the analogy here is more of a sprinter and things with shorter cycle times and using approaches like Agile, Lean, Kanban, Scrum within the Agile realm, etc. And some folks, try to push things one way or the other, more all of the traditional PPM or more of the more agile approach. And when in reality, there's a good case to be made that these things should exist both within an organization. There's a place for both of them, and they just need to work better together. So the practice of managing two separate yet coherent modes of IT delivery, one focused on stability and the other on agility, should be working in tandem in a lot of organizations, or I should say most organizations. Some of the things that disconnected systems and teams have when these different approaches are potentially running in parallel and not connected with one another is that oftentimes Agile seems to be more of a black hole to the PMO. They don't necessarily have the requisite visibility into the deliverables and progress and things they want on the Agile teams because they're using a whole different tool set to do the actual work. And it's hard for them to provide a holistic portfolio and reporting to leadership without having to mash up data manually or at least semi-manually to make those things happen. On the Agile side, they want Agile for a reason. They want to deliver quicker. They want to stay more heads down. They want to eliminate useless, unproductive overhead, let's say. And then sometimes they perceive the governance-driven PPM model as slowing them down and providing that overhead. So in its worst case, it also drives them to sometimes keep two sets of books where they're actually managing the work itself truly in an Agile fashion in the Agile tools, but then they still have to provide separate reporting, maybe duplicate timesheet entry or status reporting back up to the PMO or to leadership in addition to what they're doing to just deliver the work. So those may not be the most efficient ways to work at the end of the day. So what we really want to do is find the right balance of governance and agility and those types of things to make them work together in a way to give us the right level of visibility, insight, and control, but yet enough agility so that we can innovate, get better time to market, and be more responsive and be more competitive in the marketplace. So in this use case, you're in unified PPM and Agile solution, you really look at holistic portfolios, much like we talked about where the Office 365 Planner projects can coexist in the same portfolio with traditional Microsoft project plans. The same thing would hold true with Agile projects and using whatever Agile tool of choice makes the most sense for you in this new hybrid project management world. So in this case, the portfolio management is still all done in Project Online in this illustration at the top. So all the program and portfolio management capabilities are there, all the investment approval and all that workflow that goes through that. And any financial or capacity planning that you do would be the domain of the portfolio management solution. But then you can choose to use the execution tool that makes the most sense, Project, Visual Studio, Office 365 Planner, etc. And what this does, it gives us the ability or the opportunity to do more holistic resource management across all projects, regardless of what tool sets are being used to execute. It gives us the ability to have unified time management, meaning if we're using an Agile tool, for example, like Visual Studio, you can actually report status and even time and hours of actual work spent in the native tool that the team is using, in this case Visual Studio, and have that information feedback as status to Project Online projects, as well as to a timesheet, so that the idea is it can be pre-populated with information that was actually entered in Visual Studio, JIRA, or whatever the Agile tool might be. And ultimately, because we have all these different tools converging, we're building these rich data sets across multiple data sources, but having them all converge into Project Online. And then we can use Power BI to really build some robust, holistic reports around hybrid portfolios, Agile metrics, waterfall metrics, financial metrics, whatever it might be, so that we don't have to pull this stuff together manually in every reporting cycle, which can be very laborious and frustrating as an organization goes, and maybe focus on more high value things other than data reduction. So hopefully that set the stage for you a little bit in the concepts of unified work management. All right, with that, let's go to Let's go to a demonstration. All right, so what we're looking at here right now is a project center in Microsoft Project Online. This really ends up being your, I would call it the hub of project information, meaning you can have a portfolio of projects with whatever metrics, fields of data. In this case, it's organized by life cycle stage in the project, but it could be by program or projects or whatever, or what have you. And the idea here is that all of these projects don't necessarily have to be driven by Microsoft project schedules at the end of the day. Natively in Project Online, you would actually select a project, and then you would go up into open this, and you could open it up in the browser version of Microsoft Project called Project Web Access, or in Microsoft Project itself, in order to just open the project plan and then publish it to the repository so that the updates are made available to you right here in Project Online, and have it update this portfolio, dynamically and natively. Now, in this case, you can have a variety of different enterprise project types that allow you to define, based on subject matter, size of project, whatever it is, different templates for the different ways you create projects. But once again, this is all based upon having Microsoft Project at its core as your scheduling tool. Now, given the new release of an update of Microsoft Project Professional 2016 for Project Online, there's some things that you can do with Office 365 Planner natively in Project now. So for example, if I go down and I look at this Partner Help Desk project, and I go to open this up in Microsoft Project, what you'll notice is I have my task plan built here in Microsoft Project. But when I go into the task menu here within Microsoft Project, you'll notice what's here now is a link to Planner that's available to us in Microsoft Project. Now, what this does is it doesn't really provide the capability to manage your entire project within Planner. What it does is it allows you to take a specific task, like this determine project scope, to select then the link to Planner, and then what it allows you to do is then go over and link this plan to an existing Microsoft Planner group. So for example, if I have a group or a team in Office 365 Planner, and I want to basically link to that, I just need to search or type in some keys to that, and it will actually open it up to that and then actually take me to that and add the requisite resources or make available to that the resources that I'd like to have and create that link. So it's as simple as that, but what it is it's creating a link as a subset of a specific task in this case. So in this case, it's linked to a Office 365 Planner plan, and if I click on that link, it'll take me there. Oh, and I apologize, my login timed out. Good for security. And the idea here is now you can see in the Office in the plan that I linked to, you can now have detailed tasks that you can work in through your different buckets of to-dos. In this case, I can bring it through kind of a progress set of stages, and I can see what's in progress as far as the subtasks or to-do items or action items that I pulled in here, where this project scope was about interviewing the customer about requirements, right? Estimate the effort to meet requirements, review the estimate with the customer, and finalize the scope to be delivered. And then the teams can work on these things in here as a simple fashion of dragging and dropping the different tasks across the different project stages through completion, right? They can actually go into the specific tasks, and they can do things like even subdivide these even further into checklist items. You can have attachments. You can even have conversation and comment threads in here as well. So the idea is you can use more of a Kanban style approach for those very granular items, and then leave the higher level deliverables to be the domain of Microsoft Project. So it's fairly simple to do this, to link that, especially if you're using Office 365 Planner already. Now, conversely to that, as we go into our project plan again, let's just say you want to do something a little differently. This is where Wickersoft's Project Connect comes in. So let's say we've approved a project has come all the way through the approval prioritization process, and now this has now been a project that we want to embark upon, and we want to start building out a detailed plan. And the project team and the project manager wants to manage the project in its entirety in Office 365 Planner, not just some tasks or to-dos that are a subset of a specific Microsoft project task, but the entire project could be managed here. Maybe it's a simple enhancement project. Maybe it's something that doesn't require a lot of work breakdown structure. It just needs to have some things accomplished and go through a flow. And the idea here is Project Connect from Wickersoft will then, through its Microsoft cloud-based integration platform, allow you to use Office 365 Planner as an alternative to actually building this plan in Microsoft Project itself like you would do natively. So if I select this project, Social Networking Integration, and I click on the Office 365 Planner link from Project Connect, it will allow me, and it will, if it doesn't exist, it would create it, and if it does exist, it will take me right to the project, and here is where I can then build out an entire plan. Now here I've got it down by buckets or different stages, and I've got a little Kanban set of board here type of approach. But once again, if I look at this from a phased approach about what's in not started, what's in progress, and what's completed, I can drag these across the same stages like I did prior, but this could be in total all of the tasks within this particular project. And we can even then look at these things from different views, like who it's been assigned to and other things like that, as we look at different resources that we have on these projects. So it gives you a very simplified approach to managing these things across a Kanban style board, and keep it simple for folks that maybe aren't trained or maybe are intimidated by the use of Microsoft Project. So this is a good way to have this happen. And then Project Connect will do on an automated basis. We'll take the updates that you put within these tasks regarding completion percentage, updates, notes, whatever it might be, and then pass that back to Project Online as you go into the Project Center. So as I come in here and start looking at that, it will actually bring those tasks back into Microsoft Project. So when I look at the schedule, these could actually be sourced from the Office 365 Planner plan itself. So hopefully that you get that delineation between the new addition into Microsoft Project for the linking to tasks, and one where we can actually create it where Office 365 Planner is the execution tool for a specific project within this portfolio. Now that being said, there's other use cases that you can have, and this is where we talked about the Agile tools that are in play. For example, let me go down to a project that might be managed in another Agile tool. So let's say, for example, I wanted to look at a project plan that's being done in Office 365, in Visual Studio, VSTS. This Fabricam project, the Agile team may be in that integrated software development environment of Visual Studio, and they're using Visual Studio Team Services to plan out and doing Agile, Scrum, or other Agile types of approaches in that. So once again, instead of creating or opening this plan in Microsoft Project, Wickersoft Project Connect will make available to you the ability to execute on this tool on this project within Visual Studio. So here I could actually open up this Fabricam project, and it will actually take me to Visual Studio. In this case, notice here, it takes me to a backlog, where for this project I could have a product backlog where I'm breaking this down into your epics, features, user stories, tasks and bugs, etc. And I can build that backlog hierarchy like you traditionally do in Agile tools. In addition to that, we can start building this thing out into iterations or sprints. And as we look at what's in different iterations or sprints, typically teams will manage these things across the various stages through task boards or storyboards. And as you come through here, just like we did in Office 365 Planner, you can move them across the different stages that have been established to indicate different levels of progress. Or you can actually go in and open up specific items in the board, and you can do things like put in original estimates. You could put in what's remaining to communicate back to the team what you have left to go. And you can even put completed hours in here that will actually feed back into actual work and actually populate a timesheet from here. The idea here is that the teams that are working in Visual Studio Team Services can just remain in the tool here and do everything they need to do from within here, and not have to worry about doing things that are unnatural to that process to feed that data back to Project Online. through a timed process that can be scheduled to be hourly or whatever intervals you'd like. This information will be picked up with an automated process and populated back to the project center in order to make that happen. So as we go back and we look at this project, for example, in Project Online, as I drill into here, you can start looking at the information that's coming back from Visual Studio in a more agile fashion. For example, as I kind of look at this, for example, and I go and take a particular view where I maybe want to look at this from a more agile perspective, you'll notice that I'm bringing over data that you wouldn't typically have in Project when you're building a waterfall plan. So for example, here, notice I've got a plan that's actually showing the sprints or iterations, then broken down by the features and the user stories and the tasks. Notice that this iteration has a time box that's been brought over on these tasks, and it gives us the ability to see this information. Even though the system of record and the work is being done in Visual Studio, it's represented over to here in the details in Project Online and can actually be rolled up to provide status based on this information at the portfolio level in the Project Center. So the idea is that the teams are working in the tool that they choose for Agile, in this case Visual Studio, and the information is being provided to the PMO and to leadership without having to do the manual gyrations that are often required to make that happen. Same type of use case is available for the myriad of JIRA users that are out there. So if people are using JIRA for their Agile planning, for example, you could actually have the same use case where I can come in and say e-commerce portal development is the project that I'm managing in JIRA. And I can actually go open up that project in JIRA and then come over here and see all the execution that's being done here. Notice that I have the sprints and the iterations, and I can do the same thing with my story or task boards and bring this over, and then basically come in and do all the updates that I would do here in JIRA. And just like with Visual Studio, have the information like logging work and things like that be update those things here like on time spent, and have those passed on an automated timed basis back to Project Online based on the information that's entered here by the teams that are preferring to use JIRA. So once again, a similar use case. Ultimately, what's happening here is we're building some robust sets of combined data that allow us to look at a lot of different things. And based upon the things where I said where we're logging work and putting estimates in Visual Studio, in JIRA, and the other tools that we're using for execution, I can actually now come into a resource center within Project Online, and I now have the opportunity, let's say I'm focusing on the business analyst here, I can actually come in and view capacity planning across all work that's coming in from all those different sources of execution. So here the resource utilization may be all based on not just Microsoft project plans, but on Visual Studio plans, JIRA plans, or possibly even Office 365 plans. And the idea is I can look at a very simple type of view where from a FTE perspective, I can see which of my resources are working on what projects, and notice that some of them, like the Fabricam Agile project from Visual Studio, is included in this mix. So we have a more holistic group of information data points coming together for us. And then because of Project Online's great integration and native integration and feed to Power BI, a lot of the things that we're doing here today can come together with that as well. So without getting too much into this, notice I'll show this one dashboard that has in a combined dashboard traditional portfolio reports and metrics in these tiles in this dashboard, like cost and risk and ROI, the classic strategic bubble chart that you'll see in a lot of PPM solutions, KPIs and status on different projects and different portfolios. But also notice that for the folks that have an agile focus, we can look at things like sprint burn-ups and burn-downs and bug trends and cumulative flow diagrams to see how we're doing on changing scope and things like that. So here we have a hybrid of both agile metrics and traditional PPM metrics in the same dashboard because we've done a nice job of making these worlds converge. So hopefully you've seen some examples in here of how this unified work management has different options. Natively from Microsoft Project with the new links to Office 365 Planner for subtasks, for complete project linkage between Office 365 projects plans that can then be fed back into the Project Online portfolio, and then just some food for thought on how you can actually use third-party tools that are being used for Agile to feed in with a very similar use case. So with that, let's talk about some additional use cases of how Wickersoft Project Connect can be used to make those things happen. So with Project Connect, which is a productized set of connectors that is based in the Microsoft cloud, we end up having Project Online being the center of the universe as a project and portfolio management solution for all project and portfolio and resource management data. We talked about the Agile use case here in the upper right. We talked about the simplified work management or task management for Office 365 Planner here, but also notice that you can use more unstructured work. We have integrations with things like ServiceNow and Microsoft Dynamics and Salesforce. We also, from a professional services or CRM perspective, have integrations with Dynamics and Salesforce as well to feed that into the process. And very common in PPM solutions, people want to integrate with their financial or ERP systems, and that same Project Connect platform can be used to get data in from things like SAP and Oracle and other financial systems that we've done. The idea is that this platform allows you to get out of the business of doing one-off integrations or interfaces between these solutions and having to maintain those as these systems change, as APIs get modified. The idea is that the vendor then provides this really as integration as a service in the cloud so that you no longer have to worry about that. You just subscribe to it and it works. So the value and benefits as a wrap-up is from unified work management is let's keep the users working in their primary tools and solutions that are conducive to the type of work that they're doing. Let's not force them to do things in different tools or in multiple tools in order to get their jobs done. Also, just allow users to work in the tools appropriate for their role and maturity. If a simple project plan in a Kanban fashion in Office 365 Planner will do the trick, why not just let them do that and have that automatically feed into the portfolio? Also, you can improve adoption and effectiveness of adoption by minimizing unnecessary complexity. Don't put more complexity than is required for different folks and different audiences in your organization that have to provide status and progress on projects. Also, if you have a better user experience using tools that the user prefers, you're going to end up with better participation and compliance, which means you're going to probably end up with more complete and accurate data if they're using the tool on a daily basis. And just in general, it'll provide better collaboration across all areas of the business if we have these different silos better integrated. Even if we are still using different tool sets, having them work together is going to make us more effective from a collaboration and communication perspective. And just the overall value of this integration is we would end up with, as we talked about the hierarchy earlier on, better portfolio alignment to organizational goals and objectives, meaning that the tie between strategy down to execution becomes more robust and more automated. Also, we get to consolidate all work and resources into a single view as a natural output of the process. And then Project Connect from Wickersoft can quickly and reliably bring together disparate business systems with very little effort on the part of you, the user, and the customer. And ultimately, we can get those holistic views of resource availability and portfolio information as a natural output of the process, rather than having to have it be a project in and of itself and a heavy manual work effort to bring that data together. And ultimately, that is going to give us better forecasting and more realistic expectations on a more timely basis with quicker turnarounds. And hopefully just improve governance for planning, executing, and reporting across the board. So if you're interested in this, Wickersoft is, as Mike introduced earlier, is a joint venture with Microsoft established in 2002. We have a triple gold certification. At the top of that is our project and portfolio management certification, which we've been doing for almost 20 years. We also provide a good footprint of consultants and experts around North America and globally. And the idea here is that we're an organization that can support you even on a local basis, or if you have multinational requirements that need to be met. We really have a strong passion and a focus in project and portfolio management, which we talked about today. But we also extend that into the Microsoft Dynamics world in their business solutions platform with things like professional services automation, field service, and other things, and linking with CRM as opportunity management may be part of a feed into your project management system. We also deal with Visual Studio so that as people want to do agile development and fold that into the process and integrate that and maybe even talk about scaled agile or implementing SAFe, we help people with that as well on that platform, as well as just the general SharePoint basis that Microsoft Project Online is built on, and help people extend the SharePoint capabilities to really extend to just enterprise work management beyond just project work as well. And ultimately, these things are all tied together with Power BI, and we're really doing some innovative stuff to provide good analytics, good visualization, and just good decision support based on the use of these solutions. If you're intrigued by what you saw today, for next steps, Wickersoft will offer you a free assessment and roadmap of what it would take to get you into some of these technologies and give you an idea of what might be ahead to make that happen. It's typically easier than you would think. Also, on a free pre-sales basis, we're happy to set you up and chaperone you through a Project Online trial, potentially with these types of connectors involved. And we would chaperone those things and provide you support through that trial so that you get an orientation and get your questions answered and any of your concerns met, and then we can actually address your use cases very effectively through that chaperoning of that trial. And if you just want a personalized one-on-one demo, I mean, this was a very generalized demonstration today, but if you want to see things that map to your specific use cases a little more closely, we're happy to establish that and follow up with you on that as well. If you want to look at other topics, we have a great library of on-demand webinars that we've done over time, as well as a schedule of our upcoming webinars at, it's actually at us.wickersoft.com/webinars. So instead of the www, my apologies, it's us.wickersoft.com/webinars. And if you want to just make an inquiry, NA sales for North American sales at wickersoft.com, or if you want to talk to me directly or communicate with that, I'm jpatterson@wickersoft.com. So with that, I'd just like to thank you all for your time and attention today. If there was questions that we didn't get to in the chat panel today, we'll be sure to respond to you after the webinar. And if you want to learn more, us.wickersoft.com is a place where you can go to see all of our offerings and some of the rich content that we have available. We have some Project Online specific focused information at project-online.com. And if you want more information about Project Connect, the integration platform, it's projectconnect.co if you'd like to go check that out. We'll be making these slides available to you, and you'll be getting an email from us with that and a link to the recording of this presentation. So hopefully you found some value in this today and for the time spent with us, and hopefully we get to interact with you in the future. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.